I'm a student at Trinity, Laban, and today we'll be talking about why classical music is losing its appeal amongst young people in the UK and how we can use advertising to revamp it. In this video, I will do my best to show how we can rebrand classical music and its musicians to make it more modernized, light, and more accessible and attractive to young people, proposing fresh new strategies of my own device or from creative ideas already presented by many other individuals on the same wavelength. Why? Because I care deeply about the music and I'm aware of how inefficiently it has been portrayed to young people and how its stuffy appearance has been advertised at the expense of the music. Before I begin, I need to say that I'm not suggesting that all of classical music should be rebranded this way. I still believe there should be formal concerts for a more mature audience, but my argument is that we should start catering equally for a younger audience in a refreshing way. So what even is classical music?
The English dictionary describes classical music as music that is considered to be part of a long-form tradition and to have lasting value.
Which really gives us nothing to work with. The classical era specifically refers to a period from the 1750 or soon after to sometime between the 1800 and 1830. But classical music, in the broad term, seems to span from the infancy of Western music as early as the 11th century medieval sacred music to essentially most of the 20th century. Now this is an enormous amount of time that we're categorizing as one, so already we can understand why it would be causing confusion for young people. Tim Baker, author of Reinventing the Wheel, a book about young people and classical music, said, "To overcome the barriers that stop young people attending the arts, you need to know what they are. To help someone make informed choices about participating in an arts event, you need to know what information they need. So there's nothing better than hearing opinions from young adults themselves," which I found from this other study. This guy called Kolb created a study to see if young people appreciated classical music or not. And now that we've kind of given an overview of the meaning of classical music, it's just as important to analyze its connotations from the point of view of young adults. Everyone in the audience was older. They mentioned the overly formal attire from both the orchestra and the audience, and one individual even compared it to going to a funeral. What transpired from the study is that if young people are choosing to dedicate a night out to let off some steam, especially if they're students or they have a full-time job, their priority was to have fun and socialize, not sit down and be quiet. So this should be our strategy when we're trying to rebrand classical music. We know what young people want from an evening of entertainment. The real question is, can we satisfy their needs and preserve the integrity of the classical music? Young adults are primarily choosing to avoid going to classical music gigs because of its connotations with the appearance rather than the music itself. In my eyes, changing the appearance of the formal wear doesn't take anything away from the quality of the musician or the hard work that the musician has put in the music. And it's a one-second fix actually that would attract a younger audience. I think it's vital for the survival of classical music to understand that music needs to function as a brand. Everything you do should be done through the lens of marketing. And musicians are entrepreneurs as much as they're artists, and researching self-promotion should be a priority because there might be a lot of criticism involved with this kind of modernist perspective, but objectively there is no argument. The percentage of concert goers and classical music lovers is overpoweringly older than younger people. It is undeniable that the marketing strategy in use today for reaching a younger audience is not fulfilling expectations. So we can only welcome new ideas and creative strategies rather than shut them down because they're different from the conventional. Which brings us to the middle part of this documentary, which is how can we rebrand classical music for the benefit of young people? Eric Getz from Regis University argues that classical music can indeed be enjoyed as entertainment, and part of its values lies in the fact that it can be simultaneously entertaining, emotional, and aesthetically valuable. The perception of classical music will remain negative if it is only seen as an elitist after-school activity for the rich. So in my opinion, one rebranding strategy would be to make it more accessible from a young age in schools. Through the years of formation, having access to classical music, they will have the time to metabolize it and hopefully enjoy it when they're older. Elias G. Ritz-Callas proposes a non-classic marketing approach for classical music and mentions how an elitist image might have carried over from the past, and that can be mitigated through marketing and rebranding, along with recruitment of a younger audience. He found evidence that those who had a music education showed significantly more favorable attitude than those without a music education. So we shouldn't underestimate the long-term impacts of making music classes more accessible to all children if we're working towards a future increase in a younger audience. Which brings me to a topic that I've never really seen before, which I've called promoting yourself, the interpreter as a rock star. So classical musicians are faced with another hurdle than other musicians. We have the added difficulty that we're not composers, we're playing someone else's music, so how can we promote ourselves whilst being respectful of this boundary? There have been many schools of thought over the many eras of classical music, so we were inclined towards the dismissal of personalization during interpretation in the past. I found a quote by Liszt which encapsulates exactly how I feel. A virtuoso is not a passive tool for reproducing feelings and thoughts without adding anything of his own. He is not a more or less experienced interpreter of work which leave him no scope for his own comments. For the virtuoso, musical works are in fact nothing but tragic and moving materializations of his emotions. He is called upon to make them speak, weep, sing and sigh, to recreate them in accordance with his own consciousness. In this way, he, like the composer, is a creator, so he must have within himself those passions that he wishes to bring so intensely to life. Interpreters are creators too, and we should advertise our personality because, like Liz said, that is the essence of our playing, and that is what shapes our product, which is our interpretation of the notes. And there's one thing that humans undeniably love more than anything, and that is stories. Storytelling is a crucial aspect of the human condition, so be mindful of how you share a story. Who are you and what resonates with you? What connects you to Beethoven? Share your strategies. When I learn a piece, I love to read letters of the composers they wrote during the years of the composition, for example, so that I can feel a deeper connection to what they were experiencing when they were writing those notes. In Kolb's study that I mentioned before, most students complained that there was an anonymity within the performers. They found the lack of communication between the musician and audience confusing. So merely introducing every piece in a light, personal and formal way has a great impact on the audience. Many over the years have made their thoughts clear what it means to be an interpreter, and in particular there was a 19th century critic called E.T.A. Hoffmann, and he went as far as saying, "The genuine artist lives only for the work. He does not make his personality count in any way." I feel like a genuine artist is a creator, and you can only create about things that you feel, and therefore there is no work that you could ever complete without personality. The next topic is actually something that we can't ignore, but it's social media. Interesting what music critic Bela Bartok had to say about technology. He was born in 1881. So he had very, very advanced views on the impact technology would have on the relationship between humans and music and society as a whole. He said, and I quote, "The radio will develop into a calamity equivalent to any of the 7 Egyptian plagues, even topping them because the spread of these devices is infinite." Unfortunately, we do live in a world where social media consumption has become part of daily life, and despite its many negative attributes, there are ways to spread positivity on these platforms. And getting creative with the content you create, with the things you're passionate about, will be a fabulous way to introduce classical music in a playful and youthful manner that may engage young people more. Promote other musicians who are inspired like you to make a change in classical music. They will reciprocate, and together you will reach more than you would yourselves. Celebrate the fact that there are others passionate about doing what you are trying to achieve. Another easy way to use the internet to create a community is to set up a mailing list. Encourage people who attend your concerts to sign up or follow you on social medias. And the mailing list, you can talk more personally about your own goals and projects and engage your followers by being interested in their feedback, thus creating and solidifying regular concert attendance. Involve all of the arts that you can. Having the freedom to experiment is at the forefront of being an artist, and creating engaging events in which many arts are involved will be a great way to meet creative people, make important contacts and collaborate with inspiring individuals. Working with dancers, graphic designers, stylists, painters, anyone passionate about creating really will create a unique experience of a night that will make classical music shine in a different light. One topic that I think should be addressed is concert attire. So for a younger audience, dressing casually is an easy way to appear less serious and intimidating. Going as far as being creative with your look will attract an audience who might not be familiar with classical music, but enjoys the theatrical element of the fashion, for example, therefore might be more open to an unfamiliar experience, because the event itself caters for a wider audience. I read recently in an article from The Guardian a while ago that said that there's this entrenched idea that classical musicians should be heard, not seen. And I think that's a terrible way to advertise what we do. Of course, the music should be the focus, so there is a fine line in which you can express yourself without taking away the focus of the music itself, but that doesn't mean complying to fashion rules which are in place for the comfort of an older audience. Classical music will always try to maintain its status, but young adults will struggle to feel comfortable watching musicians dressed extremely formally, and their sense of discomfort and intimidation will consequently and inevitably affect the way they perceive the music. If you don't believe me, believe Nuala Griffiths from the Royal College of Music, who conducted a whole study about the effect of concert attire on the audience and the performer. One of the women performers of the study shared that by dressing in a manner with which her audience is familiar, she's making herself and her music more accessible to them. Now, because she was dressing for an older audience, she preferred to dress accordingly with modest attire. But if we made an effort to dress towards a younger audience, we would equally make ourselves accessible. I think alternative venues are a great way to promote classical music. Young adults will definitely prefer an informal event in which they can feel comfortable in their casual attire, they can feel comfortable talking to their friends. Luckily, there are many organizations who have been doing that. I found one organization in particular called Alternative Classical, which felt like a turning point for me. It opened my eyes. I had no idea that events like these were taking place, and it filled me with joy. What's not to like about a concert in a car park, or a cozy concert where you enjoy classical music in a pub, or even a concert in a tube? Point is, there's something for everyone. We're not trying to take away the formal concerts, we're just providing more choice. Alternative classical is outstanding and defies all of the stereotypes of classical music that we're trying to shake off and we're being criticized for. Miraculously, the founder of Alternative Classical actually agreed to speak to me about the subject and shared a load of wisdom. Unfortunately, I was stupid enough to just screen record it and not record the video call, so unfortunately I lost everything she said and I was too scared to tell her to do it again. So you're gonna have to believe me when I say that she shared very similar views on the subject. So a massive thank you to Hannah for agreeing to dedicate her time for my documentary, and I definitely learnt my lesson about recording the audio with the screen. Topic that I haven't seen being talked about very often is active visuals for promotion. So we're talking about posters, musical posters. I've been a student at Trinity for quite some time now, and I have walked the corridors enough times to say that the flyers for classical events are not as visually engaging as the promotional posters for the music students who are designed by students and bands. So I decided to conduct a mini little study of my own on my Instagram to create a toll. Comparing posters I found on the corridor of Trinity by the classical and also the BAMP, which are the band students. I asked my followers to choose which one they preferred, and because the demographic of my followers is my age, these results are pretty accurate. I'm not surprised that 78% of my followers prefer the right, which was pictures of the band posters, as opposed to the left, which was pictures of the classical posters. What would help classical music gain more popularity amongst young people is if we had a collaboration with a big name in the pop music industry. For example, pop star Lizzo is a global sensation. She also coincidentally happens to be a classically trained flutist, and the world went crazy when she performed a little snippet on the flute of a classical piece. It became a phenomenon known as the Lizzo effect.
You may know Lizzo for many things, her music, her body positivity, but one of the things you might not know about her is that she is a classically trained flautist. Thousands of people at Glastonbury saw the American singer bust out her flute to play a sampling of Mozart. That is not something you see much of on the pyramid stage. But now the British Flute Association says the pop superstar has made the instrument cool again. It's called the Lizzo effect.
If we're able to collaborate with acknowledged musicians in the pop industry who have a classical background, I know that there will be passion. Classical music gain more popularity. Adam Sabo is the co-founder of Manchester Collective, an organisation that focuses on the elasticity of the term classical music. He says that it's not as if the music isn't enough. It's just that even the best art goes down a little bit sweeter with a good drink, a comfy chair, and good friends to hang out with after. A lot of the responsibility falls on the conservatoires to make a big conscious effort to advertise these associations to classical musicians themselves, who will be easier to attract to these type of events as well than a non-musician, thus making the advertising effort more efficient and improving attendance if it is specifically directed towards musicians who attend music schools. The purpose of this documentary was not to banish the formality surrounding classical music, but providing a different recipe in a way that will please a younger audience. So if you like this, stay tuned for more. My name is Penny and I'll be back next week.